Hello and welcome to a quick scene version of a larger formatted piece done on pearl paper, okay? So we want to do a quick version of this. Could be a stamp along. Hopefully you join me and give this type of scene a shot. I really like the paint pen buildup on this and I don't know, just kind of a more whimsical looking color scheme here that can be found out in nature because I was inspired by some photographs of kind of a spring kind of blossoming, I don't know, kind of purple terrain basically, okay? But this one we're going to utilize the watermill, the boulders with lichen here, the aspen trees, done in purple, of course, this time. And if we have room for it, we'll use some elements of our oak branch here as a foreground overhang in here. Okay, so what we have here, we're going to keep things really simple here. We're going to use a piece of matte white cardstock, okay? Sometimes I have to get back to that. Sometimes I don't use that for a while. Okay, now in addition to that, hopefully you have some sort of paint pens, okay? Even if you have one color, it could be a Sharpie paint marker here. I have the Artistro set of paint pens. They come in all kinds of different colors. I'll try to go fairly minimal on this though. Okay, I'll try to stamp something out with a purple and then add some pink and white embellishments on there. I won't go too crazy with this in the spirit of kind of an expedited scene here. Maybe go with pink and white, but we'll do our impressions in purple, okay? I don't have a super dark purple. This one's a little bit lighter than kind of my preference here. Let me see if I have a little bit of a darker one, maybe a magenta or something like that. I do have a violet here, but it's really starting to disintegrate. Let's see here. This is a number 3 blue. That one's going bad too. I might have to use a pen here. So this pen here is a darker purple. So if you have a darker violet of any brand of inks, that will do it, okay? I don't know, you can maybe even use a magenta. Let me see my magenta here. I'm starting to get pretty, I don't know, aged in terms of a lot of my different media here. So, as are things in the stamping industry or crafting industry, you gotta hit them while it's kind of hot. And hopefully this one's disintegrated too. I'm using a pen. All right, so you're going to use a black and a violet color if you have it, okay? I guess you can go with all black if you want to, being that we're going to be utilizing our paint pens. But if you have a color, it'll be a little bit more expeditious in terms of the finished product. Okay, so naturally we're stamping a much smaller composition, 1/2, okay, instead of the half-page pearl experiment here. And I'm just stamping this out in dye-based inks, okay? I do want to use some alcohol markers on this. If you have alcohol markers, which most of you have, and you have a few colors, I would think, we're going to use that. Now, if you don't, if you have some colored pencils, you can use that as well. Maybe I'll use a little bit of both, and you can make your choice. You can go multimedia with alcohol pens and colored pencils, or just go with one or the other, okay? This is a quick scene version, so it should be okay. All right, so again, just matte cardstock like that with a dark impression like so. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to stamp out our rocks down below. If you don't have the rocks, just skip it, okay? I like to have a little bit more dimension in my foregrounds, and when you're out in nature, if there's kind of a rock area to stand on to overlook something, you'll be kind of naturally drawn to that spot as opposed to standing in like a marshy grass or something like that. That would be probably the setting for something like this with the water in there. All right, so I just used about a half of this right there, okay? And we are done with that. Now, here's the part where if you have some color, go ahead and utilize it. If you don't, I don't know, maybe try stamping it in black and then utilizing your colors over the top of it in the form of the pens, okay? Whatever you want to do. All right, so I am going to use this violet right here. I won't be using the whole thing because I'll be going for a couple different impressions of it, and it's big, you know? So I won't fit all of it in there, but I'm coloring up a pretty decent portion of it just so that when I stamp it in there, you know, if I only stamped up a little bit of it and I stamp more into the scene, you know what I mean? I might have this big white line in between there. So ink up a little bit more than you think you need. It's just a little bit of ink. It's not going to cost very much. Okay, now on this one, what I did was I stamped this tree in front of the rock, and this tree will be behind the rock, so we sandwich that rock in between some foliage, okay? It'll give it a little bit more dimension. And the black of the rock is probably going to be showing through these purple, you know, transparent dye-based purples right here, but we're going to be using the paint pens, which will give it a little bit more dimension. So I see a little bit of that rock showing through, but again, we're going to utilize our paint pens, and those are a little bit more opaque, so no problem here. All right, so in order to stamp this tree behind this rock, we're just going to mask off the rock like so. Kind of undermask a little bit. Let's see. Let's go with this one right here, this rip. The other one was kind of a little bit contoured the wrong way. All right, so we'll go like this, and we'll add this in. If you don't get it right, perfect, don't worry about it, because we have the paint pens that we're going to be using, okay? Okay, and there's a tree right there. Now on this one right here, I did use some other green trees in between. You could do some of that. If you don't have, you know, a different tree, you can use this one. You can stamp it in green. It just gives a little bit of variation. I think I'm just going to leave this as is. It would be ideal to stamp a little bit more of this one, okay? Yeah, let's do that. I thought, I don't know, they say from a compositional standpoint, it's better to stamp, arrange things in odd groupings, right? So, you know, the rule of thirds and all that, and, you know, I don't know. Threes tend to be really good. Okay, so I just wiped off some of that, so I just have this one tree inked up here. And let's see. Masking off like so. And we'll go a little bit lower, like that. We have another tree down there. The magic of thirds. Okay, so that is that. Let's stamp in a little bit of the oak branch for a little bit of an overhang. Yeah, you don't need to, but it'll give a little bit of kind of foreground depth to the scene, okay? Let's do this one in black. You could do it in purple. I'm going to add in the purples on these leaves, but let's just do it. Okay, so I'm just using a little portion of it because we don't have very much room. I don't want to have things too cluttered, okay? This gives the kind of the feeling that we're standing underneath a tree, looking out into the scene. Plus, it kind of frames the scene off a little bit in the right and left-hand side, okay? And let's go for a little bit more of this. A little bit of an overhang like that. All right. Okay, so we have things pretty well framed off here. You can put some more of these down below if you want to, too. All right, so that is that. That is my cleaning of the stamps. With dye-based inks, you don't have to be really super careful about cleaning things because if you're going to use dye-based inks on next time, well, maybe the purples. You're not going to use the purples on aspens. You're going to use like greens and yellows or something like that. Maybe wash that one off pretty good. Okay, so now we have our scene like this. Now, like I said, you can do some coloring with alcohol markers. You could color in with colored pencils. Colored pencils will give it a softer look to it. I'm trying to decide on which one I want to go with. Because I used my dye-based inks, I can color with my alcohol markers. Okay, so this is like beige tones like that, you know, kind of a lighter type of brown. I don't have too many different values of brown, but let's start off with the lightest of tones, okay? Now, you can, if you have the same colored pencils or something like that in browns and tans, then just kind of build up accordingly, okay? All right, so let's see, which one of these is going to be my lightest? That's really light. And this is a little bit more of a kind of a grayish, brownish gray, they call it. Okay, so on this right here, we're just going to do some coloring. Now my mill impression is still a little bit wet, but if it wasn't, I don't need to worry about kind of the blending of certain types of inks, okay, because these are alcohol and these are water-based and those really don't mix, but it is mixing a little bit, but it's not because of, you know, it's dissolving the colors. It's because my ink right here, my impression is still a little bit wet. But I am going in and see I'm kind of adding some shadows to the scene right here. Maybe I'll use some colored pencils on here. It'll go just as fast. And this on some of my bricks, and then there's some of these shadow areas in here, okay? It looks more grayish tinge than anything. So let me hit this, well, let me go into this rock a little bit too. See this rock right here? I'm gonna give it a little bit of an illusion of lighting on here. And I'm leaving the top areas of the rock a little bit lighter like that, okay? So do that with either you can do it with chalks or, you know, pan pastels or something like that too. Or chalks. A lot of people used to use chalks in stamping. I don't see that used too much anymore, but it was always a really great medium. All right, so here's some lighter versions of brown here too, okay? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to hit it with some light applications of brown on here, okay? So colored pencils really don't take very much longer than the alcohol inks. Kind of don't color in things too uniformly. Leave it a little bit, and I'm coloring with the grain of the wood. Okay, these planks are on here. So this side area is a little bit darker. We can go in there like so. You can make the bricks whatever color you want. Maybe I'll give it a kind of a, I don't know, that brick red look. In this case, brick brown, maybe. Maybe they're not that color, I don't know. And see on this watermelon right here, I'll leave a little bit of the top area a little bit lighter, so like it's capturing some of the light. That's why I'm leaving my rooftops a little bit lighter too, but I don't want them so light. Okay, I want a little bit of tone on there, okay? And see we have some overhanging tree limbs in the background. Maybe they're casting a shadow, so you put a little bit of a darker tinge right in those areas, okay? And you just make it up. I mean, you know, you don't have to kind of wonder like, wait a minute, where's the shadows there? You just kind of put it in one area like that, or two, or whatever you want, okay? All right, just going like that, right across there. Now, let's change hue a little bit, okay? This one's a little bit more of a, I don't know, a darker, kind of less warm brown. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more neutral, okay? Going across here like so. I'm leaving some of these planks just as is so that it looks more weathered that way. I'll go underneath my eaves and make those underneath the eaves a little bit darker, okay? That gives those pieces a little bit more dimension. About like so. It's looking like a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, mill-like, right? Let's see if I have a little bit of a warmer tone, a little bit of a richer brown. Richer brown sometimes isn't so much having an inherent color that's kind of richer, but it's the mixing of many different values and hues, temperatures of a certain color. Okay, see that I'm kind of going like this. I'm kind of, I have a base layer color of certain tones, but it's kind of more sketching it onto there. Remember, it's supposed to look kind of weathered, right? So that we have our mill there. See how varied it is right there? Doesn't it look more weathered than coloring everything in kind of uniformly? If you want, certain areas on your roof a little bit different, you can do that. Let's go with this one again. Let's add a little bit more of a shadow on a certain part of the rooftop. Doesn't it look kind of more natural by having certain areas a little bit darker than others? And you're just kind of making it up. You're not having to, I'm not making an assessment of where lighting is, in a certain area. And I don't know where the light's coming from through there. So I just kind of make it up. And certain areas are lighter, certain areas are a little bit darker. All right, so just vary it and it'll look just fine. All right, so that is that on the mill, like so. Down here in the water, you can hit it with some really light tones of blue, like on this one right here. See, there's like little light shades of blue. You can do this in many different ways now, okay? I can come in here with a little bit of a blue tone like this, okay? You can use whatever your color applicators you're using, your ink applicators. It could be those little makeup sponges or something like that, okay? But let's see, I use a paper towel like this, okay? So try not to have a little crease across there like I just had. All right, like this. Blot it off quite a bit. Okay, so you're removing a lot of ink, but you're also kind of spreading it around and, making this surface much softer, okay? And I'm just going in like this. Oops, I caught a little something. Oh, there's a little bit of a ball of I don't know, whatever, ink fiber, pad fiber on that, I think. But we're going like this from the surrounding edge in, like this, kind of blend it out a little bit. Like about like so. You can come into your trees. I'm coming into my watermill a little bit too. Okay. Ink up again. Make it a little bit darker incrementally, okay? But see this right here, I'm starting to get this like nice little glowing area. Okay. Get it like this. Let me show you what this looks like also. Up in the sky, we'll come in the sky, like about like so. Okay. Coming around in here, like this. See that? You leave a little bit of light in there, okay? So it looks like light is coming in here, reflecting down here in the water. Think about it in terms of a perimeter, but then I'm coming in here a little bit more. All right, let's do that with some colored pencils too. You don't have to do it in conjunction with one another. You can use one or the other, or you can use both like I'll show you how to do here. So here's a couple different values of blue, all right? Let's go to even darker with this one. Let me grab a black in here. I think I'll be using a black later, but we'll start off with the lightest ones and work incrementally darker, okay? So right here with these blues, you can come in like this. There's a lot of control over colored pencils, okay? You can kind of put a few streaks across there too if you want to, like little striations or little textures in your water surface, right? Like that. You can do it up in your sky too if you want to. Remember to leave a little kind of opening of light up there, just in your sky. It gives it some good variation. Let's go with the next color of blue, okay? Next one's a little bit darker. And I'll kind of stay a little bit more perimeter oriented with this one, okay? And here's a darker one yet. Kind of hit that in your darker areas, like so. This is kind of giving a vignette to this bottom area. And then the top area has its own kind of vignette going, meaning kind of a darker perimeter, okay? About like that. So what you see is this happening right here. This one gets a little bit more black in here. Let's take our black colored pencil and we'll hit the shadow areas with this, okay? So you see that you get that kind of tone going in there. I didn't use the colored pencils on that pearl paper. I should try that on there sometime though. I think that'll be pretty fun. Might have a really good look to it. Okay, see this is kind of anchoring our scene down a little bit more when you add this kind of black into the mix like so, okay? You can add it into your mill too if you want to hit, you know, kind of create some deeper shadows like this. Darker areas of it. See then the shadow areas like underneath here. On the side wall. All right, so we have that going in there, like about like so. And like I said, you can use all kinds of different media. If you have like pastels, you can use it in there if you want to. Just kind of work it in a little bit of a kind of a value scheme. And I think things look a little bit more richer as a result of having that variation in there. Okay, so let's add in some paint pens. Let's see if going in with these two colors will be enough, okay? All right, so let's go with, yeah, I might need a little bit of pink up there on that, on those branches kind of overhanging, but let's see if we can get away with just two colors, you know, and get a decent amount of variation with just the two. Okay, so I'm going to start adding this in. This is the 0.7 millimeter. I also have some 3 millimeter pens that, you know, can get, you know, maybe give us a little bit more coverage faster, but I don't know, this is going on here reasonably fast. And you kind of cluster things a little bit, kind of build it up. It looks kind of strange, you know, with the first couple dots, but the more you build up, the better. Let me shake this up a little bit more so hopefully it's a little bit more opaque as I add this into the mix. Oh, one of the things I forgot to do is I forgot to color my rock. I'll do that in the same, you know, general way that I did with the watermill. Okay, so see, kind of cluster your dots a little bit. Yeah, kind of spread them around pretty good, but then cluster them here and there to get a little bit of a more vibrant, kind of built up application of paint, making the color that you're applying a little bit more opaque. It'll kind of get see-through unless you have some really good opaque paint pens. These are acrylic paint pens, by the way. I do have some oil-based ones. I should really try those out. I tried them out the other time, and I felt that they were pretty similar to the water-based ones in terms of opacity and I don't know, whatever, pigment to binder ratio. All right, so this one is, it's not quite as pink as I want it to be with one application of it, okay? I can go over it, you know, many different times. All right, so that is that. Okay, so you see that little pinkish tinge in there. Not as pink as I need it to be. So we will be going over that. Okay, so I'm bringing in some of the same color over a lot of my oak branches in here. We could have made the oak branches a little bit denser, but I decided to just go with that. And I did do these trees in the background here just in black, just to make things, you know, go a lot faster. But I am going in here now with the pink back into some of these tree branches and such, just to give that little continuity of color between foreground trees and the background trees, okay? We'll call it, I don't know, whatever trees are pink, we'll call them that. Even though the shapes, I know, might not be that really in form and whatnot, but we'll have it pink in spirit, okay? Wisteria, whatever, jacarandas, whatever. But just kind of that general look. All right, so that is some of that pink. Let's go and lay down some more of this down here. Let me try another pink too, okay? Give me a little bit of artistic license on here. All right, let's see. This one, a little bit of brighter pink, okay? I do have to use more paint than would be my preference, okay? But it does blend in pretty well with the background, and it gives you a little bit more control because you don't get this really super, like in this case, hot pink showing up really dimensionally against the background. It kind of mellows out and it blends into the scene a little bit more. Yeah, but sometimes I wish it would go a little bit faster through opacity and not drying darker than what it looks like when it's wet, okay? But I don't know. I'm someone that, have been stamping without these pens for many, many years, so I am grateful that they are out there. Anything that comes around that is really useful to us, even though it might not be the greatest version of it yet. I'm hoping that they're still working on the formulas. I don't know, I'm just glad because it really adds a great dimension into a stamped landscape. All right. Before this, I don't know. There were some options, but they're not as many as there are now. Okay, so see that kind of taking place now, these pinks and whatnot. All right, so let's time to try some white here. Should I? I have the thicker. I'm gonna try my 3mm, okay, and see how this goes. So we're building up the forms now. When we get to these darker, lighter tones, okay, that are going to have much more contrast against the background, use them a little bit more sparingly, okay, at first. You can kind of keep building it up, but see what you're going to get, as you're working on it. You don't want to add like a, 1,000 dots and think, oh my gosh, that was a little bit too much. So, just kind of keep an eye on the progress and what the current color that you're utilizing is contributing to the overall piece, okay? It's easy to get lost in this kind of process right here because it is kind of, I don't know, it's like the zen of, I don't know, whatever, stippling or something like that, okay? While I'm doing this, let me add a little bit of this brown tone here. I'm going to give these rocks something a little bit in relation to the watermill so that the watermill's not that only thing in there with that brownish warm tinge to it, okay? So going with that. A little bit of black. Let's use a little bit of that other brown in here too. So you don't have to color in the whole things completely uniformly. Add it a little bit more irregularly so that it looks like, I don't know, maybe some different light is hitting it. I can hit it with some of this white here in terms of creating a little bit of extra texture on those rocks because the rocks are very textural to begin with anyway. So it adds in that nice additional dimension to it. Going in here in terms of the lighting, hitting some of these overhanging tree limbs or the trees surrounding the watermill that are on the stamp itself, okay? All All right, now my white, you don't see any white down here. Look at this white, looks like this when it's been freshly applied. It really stands out, right? See what I mean about it kind of blending into the background like that. It's okay because it kind of builds up a little bit at a time. I think it's like getting more translucent, but it might be blending in a little bit with that, you know, the colors underneath there too. I'm not quite sure if it's physically merging or not. All right, let me try a little bit of the 0.7 millimeter pen. Okay, the other ones were 3 millimeter, or that previous white one was 3 millimeter. So I am going in and I'm using quite a bit of the dots in here just to try to get a little bit of that opacity going, okay? It's not going to be opaque, but it'll be a little bit lighter. Okay, adding it and some of my textures and my watermelon here. That. Okay, so that is that. A pretty good representation here, okay, of our piece. Let's see what time we're at here. Okay, this is like 30 minutes here. That's not too bad. Let me add these little, see these little rocks down here on the pearl paper. Let's go with, okay, I used some colored pencil down there, which is wax. Water-based, you know, dye inks aren't really going to stick to that. So I'm going to use a StazOn. So maybe I should have done these rocks before I colored in here with the colored pencils at least. So I'll just use StazOn. And the same way that you kind of applied color in here, see this right here? As I go for kind of multiple impressions, I go with the darker ones out on the perimeter like that, kind of. You can add some darker ones in here like that, but so you can utilize your drier version and get drier versions in here, okay? Add a little more texture out here, like about like so. It almost works as like a little shading device as well, like that. By adding a little bit more clusters out here and lighter in here, and that's what you see right here. Okay, now one of the funnest things for me when doing these types of color schemes is the larger pink dot here. I'm going to add some of that in here, but just to expedite this. But I like to add little dots of, in this case, petals, flower petals, kind of in the water like this, okay? And then on these rocks right here, you know, I'll put a few of those down as well. Okay. Now we have that. Now, a lot of you have white pigment ink, okay, and you can use whatever type you have. Let me just specifically, I've been using Brilliance a lot, but let me just use the Hero Hues Unicorn, just because, you know, a lot of you won't have the Brilliance pigment ink. Although I think you should get some of that pigment ink, Brilliance black and white at least. Okay, so I'm taking some of this right here. You're going to get a frayed cotton ball, okay? You want a really soft application of something, and I can't think of anything that's softer than a cotton ball, right? It's like a cloud. And what you're going to do is you're going to go into your lighter areas like this, and where light meets a little bit darker or darker, like these trees around here, you're going to add a very faint application on there, like it's capturing some of that light, okay? Now this is where working on kind of a white piece of paper is a little bit easier because this white really blends in with the white of the paper down here, okay? So see this tree right here? The light is coming from, you know, the middle of this body of water right here. So the side of the tree facing the light is getting illuminated. This one right here, the light is coming from the left, okay? The tree to the left, the light is coming from the right. Okay. Adding that in like so. And see this little mill where light meets darker? Let's come up in here. So I'll bring this up like this a little bit and put a little bit of mist right around this area right in here where the watermill connects with the surface. Look at that haze back in there. Isn't that fun? Or fog or mist. Gives it more of a kind of a whimsical look, kind of magical look, I think. Okay, now see this little area. Remember where I said leave some of that area nice and light? If you've done that, what you can do is you can come into this area and bring some of this lighter area right in there. Look at that lighting kind of streaming through those trees like that, right? See that right there? Doesn't it add in a really great textural form into your scene? It's something that's really soft, and look at that glowing light coming through those trees like that down in our scene. I didn't get quite the opacity in my pens down here. But one of the things that I'm looking at, I think will look pretty good. Now I was looking at this StazOn right here and stamping out those rocks in that StazOn. I'm going to try stamping out a couple impressions of this, and I think this will finish off the foreground really nicely, just going for a little bit more of a darker version of a tree. I won't cover this up completely. I'm just going down here, okay? Just adding in a little bit more of a foreground element down here. I mean, the trees themselves were the foreground, but when you add darker right in front of there like that, it just gets a little bit, I don't know, it adds a little bit more depth, I think, into the piece. Let's go with another one over here just to frame it off a little bit. And let's come over like, yeah, let's come in here like, how about like this? Remember that 3 type of thing. See, like that, I think it anchored it out, down a little bit more like that. All right, so that is that. A pretty quick scene. Let's see, what are we at? 37 minutes there. Yeah, the kitchen sink is in this scene right here. But we got a pretty good, you know, kind of finished piece around the 30-minute mark or something like that. But, you know, it's a pretty decent statement in terms of depth, texture, tons of texture in here. We use those pens quite a bit in there. And, you know, it's just on plain white paper. This one is right here. This one's used more pink, of course, but I added more pink into the impressions too. So we could have done that, you know, if I took, you know, a little bit more time to color my stamps before I made the impression, give it a little bit more of a pink tinge around the edges. But fun stuff to do. I really like this one, you know, just on terms of a plain paper and using colored pencils and whatnot. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene. Hope you stamp with me on this quick scene stamp along type of format there if you like these pieces. Put a lot of time into your shimmering little leaves there. Those are really fun to play around with paint pens and whatnot. You know, colored pencils and etc. Build up your things, build up your media, but just kind of work in the order of application. Okay, so if you're going with, you know, colored pencils or something like that, if you're going to use something over the top of it, probably go with the StazOn in terms of, you know, that ability to stick on practically anything. Dye-based inks, you know, it's kind of like a thin to thick type of process right here. Although the solvents are pretty thin too, but those are you know, solvent ink as opposed to a water-based, like both the dyes and the acrylic paint pens. All right, so anyways, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks so much for tuning in to the Stampscapes channel.